My name is Jennifer Bewersi, and I'm one of the co-directors of Music for Your Inbox. And today we're having another one of our artist chats. We're going to be talking with this month's visual artist, Sophie Pearson, who has created this really lovely piece of mail art based on her painting, I Remember You in the Ocean. So I'm going to get Sophie invited, and then we'll have our conversation.
Hi there, Sophie.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm
That was
doing
so
good.
smooth. Yeah, we're so excited to get to talk with you today. I was just kind of introducing that, Sophie, you are the visual artist behind this month's mail art for us with your beautiful piece, I Remember You in the Ocean. And we're really excited to get to just chat with you about your practice. I was wondering if to start, you could just kind of tell us your creative background, and it doesn't have to be academic, but how did you kind of come to painting as this really important part of your creative practice, and how you are expressing yourself?
Yeah. So I am definitely stereotypical in the way of I was the art kid. I have always been the art kid. Art's always been just a very important part of my life. And I feel like it was the end of high school that I finally got my hands on some acrylic paints and really started connecting with painting. I did a little bit of acrylic painting in the beginning of college. I did get my BFA. And it was probably, I think, my sophomore year that I started using oils, which is when something clicked in my head. And I ran with it. So that was when things started to feel really comfortable, and I found my medium.
That's really incredible. So the oil paint in particular is just something that that's really cool to hear how deeply that resonated with you. And so you have some really, you do really personal portraiture, and you have I was wondering if you could talk about some of the themes you're interested in your kind of current body of work, and what drives you to make some of the work you're making now, and what are you interested in?
Yeah. So I started off doing, right after I graduated college, I started off doing a lot of body image related work. And I started kind of transitioning into childhood themes I'm going to say it was about 2 years ago that I started doing the childhood work. I'm in this spot right now, in this current moment, where I'm kind of in this limbo of finding, how to connect my body image work to my childhood work, because of course, all our trauma is connected, and of course body image is related to childhood trauma and stuff like that. So I'm at the current moment, I have this piece behind me. You get a little tiny peek at, but I'm working on connecting those different themes, and finding some kind of happy medium with that. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I know, when I was looking through your body of work, I found it really interesting how much you deal with memories, and not, how photographs can create this static kind of flattened memory of uncomplicated this moment. And so you have this, especially with your childhood photos practice, you can recreate these photos and then complicate, add in all the complicated emotions. And I was wondering, was there a particular, I think is there a story behind finding these photos, or what was driven?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, so I started doing, the first ever childhood painting I did was my, I believe, junior year of college. I did this huge painting of me in a field of sunflowers, and after that I kind of tabled it because I didn't have access to a lot of photos. But then after I bought the current house that I'm living in, my mom came over with this huge tub of photos, and I waited, I had to set them aside for a bit, kind of sit with that. And then I pulled them back out and I sifted them into different categories. So I had photos of me, just me, photos of me with a caregiver, photos of me with other people, because 90% of the photos were of me in some capacity, and then miscellaneous pictures. And yeah, it was kind of through like sitting with probably hundreds of photos and sorting through them and like just examining how I felt about them, that I started to ideate, like really, I started to fixate kind of on this idea that like I have to do something with these. And it was just kind of this almost like obsession of like, there's something here and I don't know what it is yet. So I started to work with just the photos of me, and I did a couple studies of just those. And then I just realized that it was like, I want to talk about my relationship with my child self, but I don't necessarily think that painting just me completes that picture. So I brought in the photos of me with a caregiver because I thought that kind of, and it was touching more on like what was in the back of my mind. And yeah, so that's kind of how I settled on working with those types of photos.
Yeah. And eventually you kind of, so you have this kind of, if this is the wrong word, like let me know, but you have this kind of like almost redaction, you block out like the caregiver with like a color that represents their kind of emotional, like your emotional memory of them. Is that right? And then you also have this process where you like let your inner child come and comment on the photo. Can you talk about that and like where that came from and what it results in for you?
Yeah. So the taking out of the figure was, it started off as a way of kind of anonymizing things because I didn't have, the people's permission to paint them, and I didn't want to paint their likeness without that permission. So I took them out, and then I replaced them with a color that I felt most represented my emotions towards my childhood and how I felt about that specific person. So it was the blue for my mom and the red for my dad. And in painting these like fine art oil paintings, I have a degree, like this is my career. That was kind of the adult side of me coming out, and the going in with the oil pastel after the fact was kind of how I was trying to connect with, okay, I know how I feel about like someone who's going through therapy who internalized all of my trauma and is trying to sort through things now. But how does the little me who was the one who experienced all of this trauma, how does she still feel about that? And so like in the one you're holding now, that piece was a little bit more on the like mixed emotion, complicated side, and like the scribbling out of her dad, and like it's kind of this primal like I don't know, like something feels wrong and like I'm going to scribble out the person I'm angry at kind of thing. In other paintings of a similar nature, there's more like there's a heart or there's like a sun in the corner, which is more the representation of the innocence that's still kind of inside of me and the part of me that still wants to say, no, but he's my dad and I love my dad. And, so it's kind of like just mixing together those like complicated feelings of how did I feel then when I didn't know any better, and how do I feel now that I do, but how do those things come together and make like one image?
Yeah. And how does that kind of like retelling and like re-expressing these memories, how does that, what does that do how does that impact your relationship to them?
It's interesting because like a large part of this work for me is the fact that I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood. So part of my trauma is that like a lot of that's very blocked out for me. So in revisiting these photos that largely, a lot of them I'm very young in, so obviously I wouldn't remember anyways, but I don't remember any of the moments from the photos that I'm working from. And so it's kind of exploring what I don't even remember. So I'm almost kind of trying to bring stuff up in a way of like, I don't remember these specific moments, but I do remember how I felt as a whole during my childhood, which is where the kind of the red angry comes in and the blue sad comes in, because I'm like, okay, I don't remember why my dad scares me, but I remember that my dad scared me. So it's kind of exploring those emotions.
I love that. That's really interesting to hear too. There's like this really complicated relationship with memories. And, I also, I wanted to talk about like memory in general in your practice, because you also have these works, like these mini paintings, like I think you call them nostalgia paintings,
Yeah.
and like you use like childhood, like I don't know what you would call them, like glimmers or something, like stickers and like ways to like joyfully engage with your childhood too. Can you talk about, we had a question here too, painting your way to find your way back to your memories, or how does like memory play into your practice, if you wanted to talk about that at all?
Um, so like the little nostalgia paintings started as kind of a way. I'm on TikTok way too much, and there were always these slideshows of like like toys from the 2000s or like whatever. And I was seeing these slideshows and I was having such like intense emotions surrounding those memories, because I don't, again, with the memory loss and stuff, I don't remember like what toys I had as a child, but when I see the photo of them, I'm like, oh my God, no, I remember like what that felt like.
Yes.
And like the sensory experience, like all of a sudden it's just so vivid. And so those studies kind of started as a way to explore the things that I remember kind of being happy about during my childhood, because I spent a lot of my childhood alone playing with my toys in my room. And they became kind of a way to take a break from these like larger, more heavy kind of feelings. So it was just sitting with something that brought me joy, which is always, the nostalgia of childhood toys is always a little bittersweet. So it's more complicated than that. But
yes.
Yeah, so it was kind of the memory of like, I could remember what they felt like, and I could remember what they smelled like sometimes, like the plastic and stuff, and trying to bring that into like an image that, kind of depicts this like fuzzy, but also really clear memory of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the childhood memory is mostly just what I said of like, I don't remember a lot, but it kind of helps that revisiting these moments where like, also, it's these very posed photos from the 90s, where it's like someone clicked a camera. None of them are really candid. So I'm kind of exploring the way that we kind of put off more of like a happy facade in these memories, but I know that like, that wasn't necessarily the case for the whole thing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful and fascinating. I wonder, because, there's something like deeply personal and universal about a lot of the things you're doing. Like when you were describing the fact, like the smell of those toys, like I could feel that too. Like I've seen those toys where you're like, right, it had that specific plastic smell that's like unique to that toy.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so you have this experience of, you make this very deeply vulnerable and personal art that is like deeply specific to you, but also like has these, very resonant, universal kind of, it resonates with other people. And I wonder if you could talk about like what as an artist has helped you push through some of the discomfort of sharing some of these like really personal projects and like taking the risk to connect with people, and present your work so publicly, like especially on the internet, where it can be a really brutal place to share such personal work.
To say the least. So with the childhood painting specifically, the first one that I did, it was a painting of me and my dad. Kind of more like portrait style. And I remember after I completed it, I was like, this is so personal. No one's going to get it. Like, this is just, it's too niche to my life. Like, I didn't think it was going to be relatable or like valuable to other people in any way. And so I posted it to like a random art Facebook group, because I was almost like, I'm going to soft launch it, like see what happens. And this is before I probably had a few thousand followers at this point. Like I didn't have a platform really. And, so I posted it there, and all of a sudden, like, I had no context in my post, and people were just commenting, like, the most specific things. Like, I was like, oh, you guys get it. Like, you understand. Like, all you needed was the image, and you totally got what I was trying to say. And in that moment, I just kind of realized that, like, when I make art that is really authentic to myself and my trauma and my beliefs and my just me, the people who need to see it and the people who relate to it will find it and will connect with it. And that's what's important. Like I obviously, I think most artists, especially nowadays with social media, go through the phases of trying to make art that they think will do well or that they think people will connect with because they want the likes or because they want they want to make sales or something like that. And I have found that anytime I try to do that, it just doesn't work. And that making the art that is vulnerable and scary and emotionally charged is the times when I find the most people to connect with and when I have the most success in my work. Like the piece that you were that's on the postcard, that painting, I remember making it and just thinking like, oh, this is too much. Like I'm pushing it too far again. Like this is just, I had all these mixed feelings about it. And then when I shared it, it became like my most popular painting, like by far sold the most prints of that piece. And, you guys reached out and tried, everyone loves that painting. And it's just kind of funny to me that when I am my most authentic self, that's when things do well. And I think it's important as an artist to remember that I know it's a privilege to say only create when you have something to say that's important to you. But I do think that is the way that I've kind of pushed through and been able to share my work and had some level of success with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember early in this chat, you mentioned about how you had like an impulse to so when you started this project, did you know where you were headed either, or was it more like intuition driven?
I definitely didn't know I was going to make it like a series. When I made the first one, I was kind of like, oh, this will be it. Like, I'll get it out of my system, especially because it was a big jump from the work I was doing before that was just so body image focused. And once I did that painting, I just kind of, the itch didn't go away to keep, to make that. And so I was like, okay, well, let's try it with a different photo. And, I have hundreds of these photos. Like, let's just keep going. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll make a mom one. And then as I kept doing it, it kind of just, the impulse to keep doing it just stayed. And I definitely kind of, in the past few months have, set it aside. I made a couple of smaller pieces because most of them are quite large. I made a couple of smaller pieces that are a little bit more detailed. They're a little different from the earlier works. And after I did that, I was kind of like, okay, we're going to just table this for now. I'm not feeling that itch I need to scratch in my brain. But now I'm kind of back to exploring it in a different way of incorporating my current self and then smaller versions of the photos in the painting. So less of making a painting of a photo and more of a painting of current life that includes the photos. So, yeah.
That's super exciting. I cannot wait to see them. Thanks for letting us speak. I also wanted to, I think you might, a lot of artists also fear sharing vulnerable work because, it's hard to, sometimes the reactions can be hard. So are there things you've done to protect yourself or care for yourself or especially with the internet and sharing such vulnerable work, personal work too?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with it at first. It is primarily the body image work that gets the most hate online because obviously people love to hate bodies, but the childhood work also gets its fair amount of kind of intrusive comments. And at first it was I have OCD, and part of my OCD was I had to respond to every single message people were sending me, and I had to read every single comment, and I was just so compulsively interacting with people. And it got to a point where having this conversation with my therapist, she was like, you need to just not read comments and not look at messages. And so now I can kind of look at them every once in a while and it's okay. But for the most part, in order to save my sanity, quite literally, I don't look at a lot of the interaction that things are getting because it is just so overwhelming for me and my brain. And I also think that personally, when it comes to people leaving mean or rude comments, I think the best thing to do is to just ignore them and block them and, maybe delete the comment or whatever. But I don't think that the best course of action is to interact with those people because I genuinely think that's what those people want, especially because, at least for me, the vast majority of those comments come from young men. that are just trying to incite some kind of violence and upset you. And when it does upset you, that makes them happy. So, so just ignoring stuff and just kind of taking those breaks and like cutting myself cold turkey when I need to. And those are the ways that I've mostly kind of like kept my sanity when it comes to social media.
Well, and it's interesting because in so many art contexts, like if you saw a painting in a museum and you had like strong feelings about it, you wouldn't like email the artist directly. You would like have a chat with a friend, or you would like think about it more. So it's a really different thing to be so kind of accessible in and it's good to hear that you're caring for yourself, because the work is so meaningful, and I really love it. I'm glad you're still online and sharing.
I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments where I was like, I'm deleting my Instagram. I'm like, I'm never coming back. And I definitely have those every once in a while. Like every like 4 months, I'm like, it's over, I'm done. But it settles down and we take care of ourselves, and then everything's fine, and we go back to doing what we're doing.
Well, you mentioned the kind of new body of work you're working on. Is there anything else that you want to like share about what's coming up for you, or give you anything I've missed that you want to say?
I don't think so. I'm very much so in a stage right now of like, I'm creating a lot, and I'm not as much so like applying to opportunities or like putting stuff out there. A lot of the work that I've been creating, I can't post to social media necessarily because Instagram will take it down. So it's kind of been staying more quiet, more like on my Patreon, they get everything. But other than that, I've been keeping things a little bit more on the down low. So I think, once I'm kind of out of the stage of creation, I'll start to share more work, and,
I love that. And I love the different phases of making that happen like that, where you have the impulse and the phase of making and experimentation. It's so cool to hear about.
Yeah.
Well, I hope thank you so much for letting us share your piece on our series. It's like so beautiful, and it's being paired with, for people who don't know, it's being paired with a film by Kai Luan Liang about that's called Banana Clouds, which is also about like family memory, but it kind of engages with like how AI shapes cultural memory and how different kind of cultural averaging changes our perceptions of what happened or what could happen. So they're two very cool pieces of artists like kind of dealing with their memories and their family memories, and really thrilled to get the chance to present it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.